For this section, we're going to be looking at the causes of the French Revolution. In order to do this, what you need in front of you is your graphic organizer. Section 1, the French Revolution begins. With this graphic organizer, you can see the four major causes: the Old Order, the Enlightenment, economic troubles, and weak leadership. These are the four causes that, or four factors that caused the people to rise up against their king. This is a big deal because in France through the 1700s, and even if you go back previous centuries, what you see is an absolute monarchy where the king has all of the power. But in the 1700s, and specifically 1789, you see the people of France rise up and say, thanks but no thanks. We got it from here, and we're not going to listen to you anymore, and we're going to have the people control our government. We're going to have the people decide what is fair and what is right. And this thrust of change is very powerful. It's filled with a lot of violence. It's filled with a lot of emotion, good people turning evil. It's got all the makings of a Hollywood movie. And it teaches us much about what man is capable of doing. And I hope you enjoy it. But let's talk about the French Revolution and how people become so angry at their king. The first thing that you need to know is the Old Order. That's on your top right on your graphic organizer. Again, it's section 1. French Revolution begins graphic organizer. Basically, France in the 1700s can be broken down into three different groups of people. And I like to make a triangle, and the triangle kind of helps you look at who's where in the hierarchy. You have the first group. These are really important. They're the clergy, and they're called the First Estate. And you can see that right here, the First Estate. The clergy, these people are the leaders of the Roman Catholic Church. About 98% in France was Roman Catholic, even a little more than that. So you can see the leaders of the Catholic Church have a lot of power, have a lot of influence. These are the people that are in charge of the universities. They're in charge of weddings, funerals, baptisms. These are the people that have this spiritual hold of France. And the king wants to make sure that they're happy. And the clergy are very happy. They pay no taxes, and the king makes sure that they have land and that they have a good sizable amount of money. The second estate, or the second group of people, they are called the nobility. And the nobility, these are the people that are extremely wealthy. These are the people that own the land in France. These are the people that rent off their land to poor farmers. Poor farmers are forced to farm on the nobles' land, and the nobility gets this land. It's just passed on from family to family. It's not like you become a hard worker and you join this group. This group is in charge of the police. They're in charge of the courts. They're pretty much able to do whatever they want, and they're filthy rich. And they make up about 2% of the population. By the way, the clergy makes up about 1% of the population. The nobility has a lot of money, as I said. And the interesting thing about the nobility is they also pay no taxes. So here you have an extremely wealthy group of people. Not because they worked hard, not because they did anything to earn it. And they pay no taxes. The king does not touch the nobility. The king's actually kind of scared of the nobility because they own so much land and they have so much power. Then you have the third estate. The third estate is basically everyone else. Now, this everyone else category is filled with a lot of different groups of people. Peasants make up about 80% of France, so this third estate is going to be largely filled with peasants. Peasants are farmers. These are farmers, again, they don't own their own land. They farm on the nobles' land. But it doesn't just include peasants, it includes doctors, merchants, bankers, lawyers. The key thing that I want you to understand with the third estate is this. They are the ones that pay the taxes. In fact, about 50% of the money they make is taxed. I don't think you'd be too thrilled about that if you lived in a country where for every $100 that you make, the government takes $50. And while very wealthy people don't have to pay any taxes whatsoever. So the third estate is looked at as being picked on. And they make up 97% of the population. So you can easily see how this old order plays a huge factor in causing the people to rise up against the king. You have 97% of the people having to pay most of the taxes, and yet a lot of the people in this group are poor. And you can see that over here. Here you can see the third estate. This man right here, he's an older gentleman, he's weak, and he is the one doing all the work in France, while the first estate and the second estate do not have to lift a finger. They don't even have to walk. They're living off of the backs of the third estate. And please keep this picture in mind because it does show you how it's not fair. And the third estate's clearly not going to be happy with how the first and second estate are living their lives. By the way, France is the economic, social, and political center of Europe. All thanks be to the third estate. The second reason for causing the people to want to rise up against their king is weak leadership. Here you have Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette. Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette get married at very young ages. Louis the 16th is 15 when he marries 14-year-old Marie Antoinette. This is not a marriage of love. This is a political marriage. This is a marriage to make France and Austria become friends. They were longtime enemies, and the royalty of Austria gives Marie Antoinette, a young 14-year-old, off to marry the leader of, soon-to-be leader of France. You don't have to know the politics behind it, but do know she's from Austria, and this is a political marriage. Louis XVI, fast forward at 5 years later, when Louis XVI turns 20, Louis XV dies of tuberculosis, so Louis XVI becomes king. He's a bad leader, he's a weak leader, he does not like to make decisions, he's very hesitant, he's the type of person that closes his eyes, puts his fingers in his ears, and doesn't want to hear the bad news, and there's a lot of bad news to be heard. In fact, one of his cabinet members called him a fat schlub because what he would want to do is eat, and eat before doing anything else. When Louis XVI became the king of France, he said, protect us, Lord, for we reign too young." He felt ill-equipped and too young to be the leader. He is a bad leader. Marie Antoinette, she is from Austria. This is already one strike against her. She's not the leader of France, and as the Queen of France, she wasn't even born in the country. Two other reasons why the people don't like Marie Antoinette. She's nicknamed Madame Deficit. That is, she spends a lot of money. And whose money is she spending? The taxes from the third estate. And she would spend about $1.5 million a year on gambling, necklaces, jewelry, all kinds of stuff. And the third and final reason isn't her fault. For the first couple of years when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were married and he was king, they produced no children. And that's the main job of the queen, to produce children, because when King Louis XVI dies, there needs to be someone to take over the monarchy. So they have children, and the boy, the firstborn boy that Marie Antoinette would have, would become king. Well, they're not producing any children. It's not her fault, even though she takes the blame. Louis XVI is not interested in making love with Marie Antoinette. She doesn't know why. I'm going to keep this podcast PG, and I'm not going to get into the details. But she produces no children, and this makes the people of France look at her as a joke. Born in Austria, spends money, produces no children. Third one is not her fault. Economic troubles, in my opinion, is the biggest one. Economic troubles is largely not due to King Louis XVI's fault. This goes way back to previous kings, but the problem is France is in a load of debt, and King Louis XVI realizes he's got to do something about it, and he decides to tax. Now he doesn't know who to tax. This third estate is taxed about 50%. They can't handle any more taxes, so he's going to probably go after the first and second estate, and that's going to cause some problems later on. We'll talk about that later on. Another economic troubles going on is poor farming conditions caused the price of food to increase by 65%. So not only is the third estate getting taxed 50%, the price of food starts to go up, and they don't have the money to pay for food. So in the richest country in Europe, you're starting to see peasants starve. You're starting to see the economic and social center of Europe struggling, and the poor people of France, the average Joe, the average people of France, do not have enough money to eat the bare basics of bread. Bread was the big item of food that the French ate, and they would wake up in the morning not knowing if they have enough bread to feed themselves and their families. While the peasants in the third estate are starving, the king and the queen have a quite comfortable life in the palace called Versailles. I want you to know this palace. This palace is called Versailles. This is where the king and the queen live. They live a very comfortable life. While the peasants and people are starving, here you have Marie Antoinette. She's not starving, she's living it up. She's completely clueless about these people in France. She's stuck in this palace, and she's eating food, and a lot of food, and enjoying it. Price of food's going up. Economic troubles, they're in a lot of debt, and King Louis XVI realizes to pay off that debt he needs to tax someone, and we're going to find out who he decides to tax. And the fourth and final reason is not an event, it's just a way of thinking, and it's a way of thinking called the Enlightenment, and it started up in Paris, France, and the group that really adopted it was the Third Estate. And this Enlightenment idea was all about using your brain. Don't just accept things for tradition and what kings and queens and religion has told you, but think things out on your own and find them to be true on your own, through reason, through science. If they can't be backed up through reason and science, well, then don't believe them. But the Enlightenment is also teaching that people are basically good, and people can control their own fate, and people can control their own governments. So the Enlightenment is teaching this idea, please write this, called liberty and equality. And that everyone should be free. Everyone should have liberty. Everyone should have liberty in controlling their government. Everyone should be equal. You can't have liberty and you can't have equality while you have a king dictating all the terms. So Enlightenment is encouraging the Third Estate to rise up and revolt against an absolute monarchy, against Louis XVI. And that's exactly what's going to end up happening.